I don't care if it's yours, Brenda snapped, one hand on her hip and the other gripping the steering wheel like she was auditioning for the next demolition derby championship. The HOA has jurisdiction, she added, her pearl necklace trembling with righteous fury as she revved the engine of my custom-built, $2,000 tractor. My pride and joy, my weekend sanctuary, and apparently now her latest community beautification asset. I had barely opened my mouth to protest before she tore off down the street in my tractor like a bat out of suburbia, with her little HOA cronies clapping like she'd just been crowned queen of landscaping. 5 minutes later, I got the alert on my phone. The tractor had hit the restricted boundary. Autolock engaged. Doors sealed. Brenda was now fully trapped inside a 2-ton, mud-loving behemoth in the middle of the retention ditch. And to top it all off, the Bluetooth kicked in, blasting the last song I had queued. Banjo Rampage. Volume 3. Brenda was screaming. My phone was buzzing. I just stood there on my porch with my coffee, grinning like a man who had just watched Karma deliver express shipping. Let me rewind. 2 weeks earlier, life was simple. My house sat at the outer edge of the neighborhood, just far enough from the rows of identical beige boxes to give me breathing room, but close enough that the HOA still considered me one of their own. I had bought the place after years of hard work, turning wrenches, coding smart tech, building things that probably shouldn't legally fly, drive, or dig. That tractor, that was my masterpiece. A hybrid of utility and nerdy wizardry. Autolock, GPS fencing, biometric ignition, and a speaker system strong enough to clear birds from trees. It wasn't meant for HOA landscaping projects. It was built for peace, for planting, for plowing the occasional snowdrift. It was mine. My neighbor and best friend, Felix, had been filming it for weeks, not because of the tractor specifically, though he did love the tech, but because he ran a drone channel and needed content with stakes. The tractor had become his unofficial co-star. Dude, he said one night while we drank on the porch, this thing is a symbol of freedom. You're like the John Wick of mulch. I laughed at the time. 2 days later, Brenda showed up. If you've never met a suburban tyrant in a salmon-colored pantsuit, allow me to introduce you to Brenda Monroe, 6-year reigning president of the HOA. She got re-elected every year solely because no one else wanted the job. Her eyes sparkled with the power of citations. Her clipboard might as well have been Thor's hammer. She didn't make suggestions, she issued decrees. This time, it was a new initiative, community beautification. She pitched it like a campaign ad, complete with buzzwords and a color-printed flyer. It sounded innocent enough until she hit the twist. We noticed your tractor, she said sweetly, and thought, why spend HOA funds on equipment when we already have one? By we, she meant I. And by noticed, she meant spied through binoculars from her SUV. I told her no, politely at first, then firmly. It's custom. It's expensive. It's not for community projects. She smiled, the kind of smile a person gives when they've already decided that reality is optional. Well, she said, stepping back, we'll just put it to good use for the neighborhood. After all, you're a member of the HOA. That should have been the end of it. 3 days later, while I was out on a supply run, Brenda and 2 volunteers broke into my garage. They cut the bolt lock, disabled the backup padlock like professional burglars, and drove off in my tractor like it was a parade float. Felix caught the whole thing on his drone. I came home to tire tracks in the driveway, a snapped padlock, and an HOA banner flapping from my garage door like a war flag. For a second, I thought it was a prank. Then the security footage proved otherwise. It wasn't a joke. It was tractor theft. That's when the boundary alert hit my phone. The tractor had passed the geofence I had programmed into it. Autolock kicked in. Engine throttled down. Doors sealed. And Brenda, bless her power-hungry heart, had driven straight through the edge of the drainage basin, known in wet months as Lake Lawn Chair, and in dry months as Mud Trap Alpha. By the time I got there, the tractor had sunk a foot into the muck. Tires spinning. Engine dead. Doors locked. Bluetooth blaring the banjo apocalypse. From a distance, I could hear her yelling. First words. Then screeches. Then animalistic wails. People gathered. HOA members. Neighbors. Joggers slowed down to watch. One kid filmed it while his dad whispered, "Worth every bit of the HOA dues this month." Brenda, red-faced and flailing, tried to pry open the door while the banjo soundtrack played on. She spotted me and screamed something about legal action and detaining an officer of the HOA. I waved. Felix's drone hovered overhead, recording everything. Eventually, she managed to call 911. The dispatcher must have known her well, because they sent Officer Marcus Ramirez, a local cop with the patience of a monk and the face of a man who had long since stopped being surprised. He arrived, looked at the scene, and sighed deeply enough that I swear his soul briefly exited his body. "Ma'am," he said, walking up to the cab. "Why are you in this man's tractor?" "It's not his," Brenda shrieked. "It's part of a community beautification effort. He's hoarding equipment." Ramirez turned to me. I showed him the title. The app alert. The drone footage. He nodded slowly as the Bluetooth looped back to Banjo Rampage. Track 1. Brenda was still ranting when he knocked gently on the tractor window. "Ma'am," he said, "you're under investigation for trespassing and theft." "I was beautifying the neighborhood," she screamed. He looked around at the swamp. "Well, you beautified yourself right into a misdemeanor." And that, dear reader, was not the end of it. The next day, Brenda showed up on my porch like nothing had happened. Fresh blazer, clipboard, that same smug grin she wore when handing out citations for mailboxes being too beige. "I'll be needing the access code for the tractor," she said. I blinked. "You mean the one you stole?" "It's community property now," she said. "We held a vote." "You held a vote after you stole it." She flipped through her clipboard and tapped dramatically. "Article 12C allows for emergency usage of community assets." This was an emergency. Our curb appeal was in danger. She looked me dead in the eyes, as if that justified grand theft tractored. That's when I realized Brenda wasn't backing down. She was doubling down. And if I knew anything about Brenda, it was this: she dragged the whole neighborhood into her delusion. Later that day, I got an invitation to a special HOA meeting. I went. I had to. The room was set up like a courtroom. Brenda stood at the front like a prosecutor. A projector screen displayed a slideshow titled, "Tractor Gate, A Path to Unity." She rambled about community needs, shared assets, and selfishness. Then she turned to me. "Do you have anything to say?" she asked. I stepped up, connected my phone to the projector, and clicked through. Click. Footage of her breaking into my garage. Click. GPS map showing the stolen tractor's journey. Click. Her trapped in the mud, screaming as banjos blared. Dead silence. Then someone snorted. Then laughter. Then applause. Brenda's face turned the color of a ripe tomato. I ended with a notarized receipt showing I had paid in full, and a voice memo. Personal use only. Definitely not for HOA projects. Brenda pivoted. "You said I could borrow it once at a block party. I also offered you a second helping of potato salad," I said. "That doesn't mean you now own my fridge." She declared the meeting over and stormed out. But the damage was done. Dale, the HOA treasurer, pulled me aside afterward. "She didn't follow procedure," he said. "No board consensus. Just typed it, signed it, and stapled it to the wall." "You telling me she's been freelancing as a dictator?" He smiled grimly. "Let's just say this isn't her first creative interpretation of the rules." That night, I came home to find a giant banner stretched across my garage. "Community Tractor Project, sponsored by the HOA," complete with a QR code leading to a donation page, featuring a photo of Brenda next to the stuck tractor, smiling like she was running for office. Then came the fine notice. Delivered by a teen in a visor, actual fines. For blocking access to my tractor. That's when I involved Ramirez again. I showed him everything. The banner, the donations, the false fines. He rubbed his temples. "She stole your tractor, got stuck, embarrassed herself, and now she wants to fine you?" "Pretty much." I filed a civil claim. Theft, property damage, unauthorized entry. Brenda filed a countersuit. Claimed I endangered her by trapping her inside the tractor. Her lawyer looked like he'd been paid in expired Arby's coupons. But that was her biggest mistake. Now it was all public record. And Dale? Dale had receipts. unauthorized spa days, pet grooming, email chains that he quietly sent me a message. It's time she learned what accountability looks like. And that was only the beginning.